Hello, I'm Ben. Welcome to the channel. So today I want to talk a little bit about what's going on in the world, and had a good weekend of speaking with some gentlemen who all of which are older than I am and have seen the world and remember it better than I do from when I was a kid. But when I was a young man, I grew up on a farm and we could grow our own food, and people owned stuff, people owned their tractors and their cars, and you didn't have to pay what used to be mortgage rates for a vehicle, and you didn't have to pay what used to be a huge property rate for a home. And the goal for people was to own something and be something. But that's changed in the last couple of decades. The stores are going away. People that live across middle America and southern America are realizing that as the malls close and are sold off, there's less and less options for folks to live successfully where they are. When I was a young man, condiments all came in glass jars, and so did soda. And then plastic started being used for that, and then we came up with studies that water getting hot in vehicles in plastic bottles was dangerous for us because of what that plastic did. Yet all the condiments and all the food we eat that's shipped in trucking across the country is in the same type plastic containers, getting hot and getting cold over and over again. And that puts things in the food, apparently. And then you have water with the additives that we've had put in there by our federal government. And people are starting to get sick in ways that historically were not ways that people got sick. And there are food products now. If you look in your grocery stores, on the labels, you have more things that are food products than are actually food. Food means it's meat and vegetable. And in a lot of places, what people eat, majority are all processed. They don't really eat meat and vegetable. And in processed foods, they're starting to show more and more that the meat and vegetable that are in those supposedly are actually not meat and vegetable. So I'm saying all this because the weekend was kind of interesting. There was yet another attempted assassination of Trump. And at this point, you got to wonder, we have the FBI, the CIA, the Secret Service. We have all these groups of people that are paid to do things. And it doesn't seem like they're doing those things very well. Because this guy they're saying was a lone teacher that was angry. And what he said was, he didn't want to live in a world where a person who protects pedophiles, was allowed to be in the most powerful position and do whatever he wants and go to war and hurt countries. And what the guy was saying is not wrong. You got a bunch of Trump supporters that are lost on the fact that Trump has lost his mind and is out of control. And if you want to look into this for yourselves, look and see who they got out of the room first during that shooting. If you notice, Vance was taken out of the room and secured before Trump was. And being a former bodyguard, the way you control the situation is you go after your primary person of interest first, your PPE, your executive person that you are protecting. That person should be first. The team should swarm that person and get that person out of there to get them safe, get them away from anything that could be deemed harm. And clearly, that focus was not on Donald Trump over the weekend. That focus was on the vice president, which maybe that's showing that the Republican Party no longer thinks Trump is in touch with the American people. And maybe, they're planning for the next 4 years to say that, hey, Vance is going to be our presidential candidate coming up. And, it's been my opinion for a little while now that if he doesn't separate himself from Trump some, that he wouldn't be much of a candidate anyway, because Trump's not making a lot of people happy currently. And for anybody that has questions about that, it's very simple why. Everything he promised when he was on the campaign trail, he lied and then flipped on. And that's been apparent in everything he's done. And I'll use the Epstein files as the primary point of contingency there. But what I hear over and over now is a lot of people are very unsettled with how the country is going and how things are going in the country. And a lot of people feel like things are out of control and can't seem to get a grip on where they belong or how to get this focus back in their lives. And so my suggestions are coming from where I get my affirmation and solitude from I think that the more you pull back from all the noise, the better it is for you. Worshipping a politician, being it left or right, makes no sense because there are two wings on the same bird. I've seen people go to war over that when it makes no sense. But there's traits that can help you get through times like these that are so unsettling. When justice is not, keynote of the day, and when things are going sideways a bit, they will always correct. The Bible says what one generation does, so will the next, because basically everyone forgets what came before. And the Bible also says there's nothing new under the sun. So it's saying we've been in this situation before. And no matter how bad it is currently in the world that we live in, it's not as bad as it was during the Civil War. So you can look at a time in this country where things were far worse for everyone involved than they are right now, even though now seems pretty bad to a lot of people. My biggest thought around concern is people not owning things and everything costing so much. And if you listen to the pathetic nonsense that we call news, on there they're saying things like, well, this is a short-term pain for a long-term gain. And what's ridiculous about that is you hear that repetitively said across multiple different channels because the mouthpiece on all those channels belongs to one company, right? So it's pathetic. And we've seen this all before. At some point it does become propaganda. At some point it loses any value of truth. But the thing I would say is the most alarming is how dumb people are getting. At least when I was younger, schools had expectations, and when you went from one grade to the next, you had to pass testing that said you had completed what was noted for that grade. And then when you graduated high school, you had to do your equivalency exam, basically, where you'd say, all right, this guy has got a high school level of education. Now he's prepared to go to college. So then you took one of the college testing units, and then that would determine they really do have the understanding that's required for high school, and now this person can go to college. Well, that's not even the case anymore. So over the weekend, the dumbest thing I heard over the weekend was a young lady, and she meant well, but the problem is she's absolutely stupid. She's out of control stupid. She got on a news source, person with a camera and a microphone, and said she was tired of hearing about the straight of her muse. Why wasn't anybody talking about the gays of her muse? So this person is so stupid that they don't know the straight that we're talking about is a body of water used specifically for economic purposes. She thought it meant straight people, and then she thought she would stand up and put herself out there to say she's more concerned with what's going on with the gays of her muse, which is not a thing, because the Strait of Hormuz is in Iran. And in Iran, they throw gays off the top of a building. So there's not people there that are openly gay, or they don't let people know that that's the case. So it was absolutely ridiculous that this person didn't even know what a straight was. But that didn't hinder this person at all from going out into public and speaking. That's the biggest issue with this century, the biggest injury we're doing to ourselves and to public, is that it used to be the case that stupid people kept their mouths shut because they knew that they were stupid. But now everyone has a camera, everyone has, a phone, they record themselves, and no one ever checks anyone. Right? So there's no checks and balances. And so people are out there being as dumb as they are, as loudly and boldly and proudly as they can be, which is specifically ridiculous. So in these times, people feel a lot of emotional vulnerability because this is in our face constantly. So what I wanted to do the video about was some traits that actually suggest you're going to quiet your world down a little bit to give you a little more strength around your emotionally secure feelings and the traits that emotionally secure people have that could be useful to you if you find yourself lost in this world of stupidity. And the reason these traits are important is because they're tied in with happiness. And a lot of people think happiness is something that you can achieve, but I think it's something that you live up to. So I think the key of being happy is having zero expectations for other people. You don't go out there wearing your feelings on your sleeve, expecting other people to do something for you. If you have no expectations for other people, then other people can never let you down. So that's the first piece of that. The next would be, if you have no expectations of other people, and then you take responsibility for your own life, meaning you hold yourself accountable for every decision you've made, which puts you in the place that you're in. Whether someone took advantage or not, that doesn't matter. At the end of the day, you made a decision that included that person in your life in some way, shape, or form. So you take accountability and responsibility for your life. So number one is you have no expectations on other people. Number two is you take accountability and responsibility for where you're at and everything you've done in your life. And number three, and this is the most important part when you talk about being happy, is that you're grateful for everything that you have. The biggest issue with the world today is people aren't grateful for anything. Your phone is constantly pitching you ideas, the next thing you need to buy. All of your purchasing habits are bought and sold to companies and then used against you, because then they send those ads straight to your phone. And you have this in front of you constantly, and you get in this world of consumerism where all you want to do is consume. My suggestion to people in that pattern is that you buy books. The more books you buy, the more time you spend in books, the more disconnected you get from that noise and from that nonsense. And then you have an uninterrupted view of another person that you're reading, solely that other person's writings, and then that person can help you get some calm based on the life they've lived and their understanding of what's happened in life. So one of the traits around being okay that leads to this emotional security that I'm talking about, number one, is you're okay with being misunderstood. So part of having no expectations of other people is not having an expectation of them understanding what you think in the first place, so you don't feel like you have to over-explain. One of the best lessons I was taught at one time is don't complain or explain, because if you're spending your time complaining, it shows that you have no power to change your situation, and if you're in a situation that you have no power changing, then you need to change your situation. So don't complain, change your situation. The next is explain. If you have to go into an explanation with people, then they don't care about how you're feeling in the first place, because they don't value your opinions on it, because you're having to explain yourself and explain why. So that's a misunderstanding in itself, right? So instead of worrying about being misread or misunderstood or tying any expectation to that, you have to be okay with being misunderstood. It's perfectly fine. If it's a text message, especially, or a voicemail, you're most likely going to get misunderstood. If it's a conversation directly to a person, face to face, you're less likely to be misunderstood. So that's the better way of communicating with someone. But at the end of the day, you have to be okay with being misunderstood. So that's number one. Number two is you can't be afraid of changing your mind. One of the beautiful things about life and the beauty and wisdom itself is that some things you believe or some things you know, at some point you're going to gain more understanding, and that belief may change, right? So, for example, I use Donald Trump. I voted for Trump. I thought he was the right person at the time. I thought if his second term or anything like his first term, he was going to fix a lot of things for America, and this was a belief. But since then, he's proving that that belief was not true. He's proven that he's flip-flopped on some things that he said. He outright lied. The suggestion made by that is that he just was trying to get in office again. And so I don't have a limitation of belief perseverance, meaning I don't care that my belief in him has changed. My belief in him has changed because my knowledge of the situation has changed. Therefore, wisdom states that I should be able to change with the wisdom, with the facts that I've gotten, which is now why I feel the way about Donald Trump that I do. He's a liar that protects pedophiles. He belongs in prison. He doesn't belong in the presidency. So that belief perseverance can't be something that you shackle yourself to, because wise people are not afraid to change their minds. And allowing yourself the freedom to change your mind is something that's going to help you with your emotional security. And emotionally secure people understand that change means growth. whether it's what you wanted or not. Change means growth. You've learned something. I didn't want to learn that this dude was a liar and a bad guy that was going to protect pedophiles. I didn't want to learn that. I would have preferred that he stuck to what he said and actually went after these people. But he didn't. So I'm not tying myself to an opinion about him that is untrue. Okay, so the next one is, emotionally secure people are comfortable saying, I don't know yet. They have a high tolerance for uncertainty. The one thing that is absolutely certain is that everything will change. The longer you live, things are going to change on you constantly. People change on you constantly. One of the issues with marriage these days is that people are living longer and people are not as loyal as they used to be. Used to be, 100 years ago, you got married in your teens and you lived with that person your whole life. But that meant until they were 40 or 50. Because people didn't live to be 80 or 100 years old as the norm. Work was very difficult. It was very dangerous. People died more commonly at much younger ages. We didn't have the lifespan that we expect now. The lifespans in first world countries have grown, and that in itself has created some problems because of longevity of relationships are expected to go much longer because people's lives are going much longer. So that's a way to live with that. Have a high tolerance for uncertainty because things are going to change. Be okay with saying, I don't know yet, and be curious about that instead of anxious. You should always be curious and look forward to change because that is an opportunity. It's an opportunity to solve some problems. It's an opportunity to get rid of things that are no longer true and that you used to believe in that you no longer believe in. So it allows you to continue to grow. The next trait is emotionally secure people are not easily offended. So in this last few years where everybody is triggered and was offended, I myself personally thought that was weak. I think if you allow things to offend you and you allow things to upset you, then you have no control of yourself emotionally, which is what children do. So as an adult human being, you should not be able to be offended by anything. Some things are going to repulse you. And if you can, move yourself away from those things. And other things, if they're repulsive because of what they are, like I find it repulsive that people are not going after pedophiles and punishing them. So I'm not getting offended about it. I'm just changing the way I view it. And I know how I will vote music moving forward to try to correct these issues that are being tolerated at the moment. And that's the thing too. For everything there is a season. How do I know that? The Bible tells me that. So these people that are getting away with things at the moment will not always get away. Justice will come. That's the way the human lifespan works. Sooner or later, they will pay. So emotionally secure people are not easily offended. Number 5 is they don't need to have the last word. If you are truly not easily offended, then who cares if somebody has the last word? Who cares? When you have a meeting and you want to have that last word, you're trying to plant that last seed. If you don't care, right, you've given your best answers, you've given your best explanations, you've given your best examples, and people are still chipping back and everything else, then you've done what you can. The Bible says, don't cast pearls before swine. What that means is there's time to shut up. You've tried what you've tried. You've tried to share the wisdom. There were no takers, so shut up and move on. You don't have to have the last word. The next trait of emotionally secure people is they seek out people who challenge them. They want to be around intelligent folk. If they're not around intelligent folk, what happens is they end up fighting about nothing. Sometimes people have to fill the void or fill the silence with disagreements around nothing. And if you look back at that, you can't understand what the disagreement was about. It may tell you that you need to seek out people who challenge you in a better way, right? Challenge doesn't mean when you come home you want to fight with someone else. That's not what that means. What that means is this other person is striving to become better, so you have to grow to help strive to make them better as well. That's the challenge it's talking about. If you're talking to someone whose accomplishments make you feel small, then ask them how they think and what is important to them. If you ask those two questions, you may see how they're motivated, and maybe you'll find some motivation from that interaction yourself that may surprise you, right? So seek out people who challenge you. The next is they are immune to envy. Think about the last time a peer got an opportunity you wanted. It's human nature to want to draw a comparison and see how you measure up. Being able to see someone succeed without letting it affect your self-worth is rare, but is one of the clearest signs of emotional security. The happiest and most emotionally secure people understand that they don't lose if someone else wins. There's room for everyone to flourish. And also, the Bible says love your neighbor as yourself. So, if there's no love in you, then you're not of God, because God is love, right? So the expectation of life should be that you want everyone to be successful, just as you work to try to be more successful yourself. You want others to be successful, and you're praying for that success as well. So I wanted to put this video together today because there's a lot of stupid in the world, okay? There's a lot of unjust nonsense going on in the world. But remember, at the end of the day, there is a law that everything lives to. And there is a truth that is portrayed by the full story. And you have to listen to the full story before you get the truth, right? So you can't just pick a time right now, smack dab in the middle, and say everything's really crappy. You just have to wait until the end of the story. My grandmother was the best at this. When I was a young man, I would get angry with people and I would get to judging them based on how they were treating a situation or how they treated me. And she told me once, she said, Ben, she goes, God gives you your whole lifetime to try to get it right. Are you better than God? Are you going to judge somebody where they're at right now and what they've been through right now when God gives them their whole lifetime? And so at that point, I remember what I said to her. I was like, no, ma'am, I will shut up. It's exactly what I said. Because she was wiser than I, and she cared about me. And so she showed me what that security was, is that, look, you try to do your best, you give your best to people, but at the end of the day, you do not care if they don't take it. Why? Because they're on their own journey. They're on their own path. And you don't have to feel alone in this world. It's just where you're at now. Everything has a season, right? So all you have to do is get through it. Learn what you can from it. Document those things so you have the best takeaways that you have. Try to be emotionally strong. Pray about what you can pray about and continue to move forward. If you like subjects such as these and videos like these, please subscribe. If you think someone may get something from this video, please share it with them. You know, I'm not all about the growth of the channel, but I would like it to grow. My viewpoint is if all my videos just help a single person in some way, shape, or form, then my effort here has not been in vain. And I've done what God has directed me to do, and I've helped somebody and changed their life for the better. And that only requires one person. So it doesn't have to be that we have 3 million views or, 8 million subscribers. I would love the channel to grow like that, but at the end of the day, I would much rather this not be a flash in the pan. I would much rather this actually be something substantial that folks can turn to for a little bit of wisdom here and there. So you'll get some from me. You get some from articles that I read by people that are smarter in different things than I am. A lot of wisdom from the Bible and a lot of wisdom from books. Okay? Because if we study what came before, then hopefully we won't have to repeat everything like it was done then. I'm Ben. Be good.